The following is a non-profit fan-based translation of another fan-created work of fiction. Mobile Suit Gundam. Advanced Operation is owned by Sunrise Entertainment, Bandai Entertainment, and Family Soft Koisa, Lightdeed. Support the official release of both the game and the other works of the original author. Mobile Suit Gundam. Advanced Operation by Sonku Inoue. Chapter 4. The Mobile Suit Force carried by the Ill Naad consisted of 3 units per squad, totaling 9 units across 3 squads. While the ship was designed to carry up to 12 units, this is only during wartime. Under normal circumstances, it operated with 9 units to accommodate spare machines and improve overall efficiency. Since being stationed at the Odessa Air Force Base, 1 squad had been on standby in Condition 3 alert, rotating shifts. Condition 3 meant they could even take naps without issue. "Damn it, there are too many enemies," cursed Lieutenant Gary, pilot of the Gundam Mark II, as he vented his frustration at the dire situation, but complaining wouldn't change anything. When the emergency alert sounded and they scrambled to launch, the Zeon forces were already closing in. The Jim 2s stationed at the Odessa Air Force Base were slow to respond, and were being taken down one after another. Even the Medea transport planes were destroyed before they could take off, a clear testament to how late the enemy had been detected. Gary's squad had already lost 1 unit, and the situation was as bad as it could get. Those damn operators! What the hell were they doing? Were they even scanning properly? He shouted, though his beam rifle from the Mark II managed to hit a Dwadge's left leg. The Dwadge, its left leg blown off, stumbled forward and fell, dropping its giant bazooka as it slid face first across the ground. It was a pitiful sight. Seizing the opportunity, a beam from a friendly Jim 2 finished it off. "Nice shot, Lieutenant Leopard. What about Bravo Squad on the right flank?" "They've already been wiped out, sir. This is bad, Lieutenant." "Ah, they're coming in from the left flank, too." "Stop whining. These are outdated models," Gary yelled, though he couldn't shake the feeling that the enemy pilots were far more skilled than his own forces. The surprise attack had already caused significant losses, and now, among the enemy mobile suits advancing from the left flank, he spotted an unfamiliar new model. This was likely the enemy's main force. The new machine, larger than the Dwadge, had a rugged silhouette befitting a heavy mobile suit. Gary realized they couldn't hold this line. "Lieutenant, we're falling back to the first runway." "Ah, yes, sir. We'll regroup with the Ill Naad's main guard. At worst, we'll just need to protect the ship. Let's move, Lieutenant." Yes, sir." After confirming Leopard's response, Gary had the Mark II lay down covering fire as they retreated. Leopard's Jim 2 followed suit. "Chich, how pathetic," Sinclair sneered as he watched the Gundam Mark II and Jim 2 retreat. His cold, narrow eyes and blonde hair gave him a striking appearance. At just 27 years old, his skills and experience, including serving in Haman Karn's personal guard, made him the ideal commander of the Zeon 31st Descent Mobile Suit Battalion. In the corner of his main monitor, he saw Corporal Guillaume Fire's Dom Plus firing a bazooka at the retreating Gundam, Mark II and Jim 2. The operation was progressing more than satisfactorily. The smoother things went, the calmer and more in control Sinclair felt. However, there had been concerns during the planning phase. The Earth descent operation by the Zeon moderates to sign a comprehensive peace treaty with the Earth Federation had progressed far faster than the hardliners had anticipated. The 31st Descent Mobile Suit Battalion had been tasked with pursuing them before they could receive their new mobile suits, leaving them stuck with older models. This lack of firepower had already cost them dearly, allowing Sarana Khan, the Undersecretary of Foreign Affairs, to escape in her Komusai. That's why the attack on the Odessa Air Force Base had to be a surprise operation, with the flagship Zanzibar-class cruiser waiting outside the base's detection range. The mobile suit teams had to strike alone to gain a tactical advantage. Lieutenant Ulrike Meyer, his adjutant, slid her Dom Plus alongside his. A capable officer with short, dull blonde hair and sharp eyes, she seemed slightly excited by the battle, but remained calm. Gayson's squad has pinned down the defense forces on the south side of the base. Just as planned. Yes, sir. Sarana must have fled to this base. We'll take her down for sure. All right, we'll charge the enemy ship in one go. Keep it up. Sinclair pressed the throttle, accelerating his beloved machine. His custom unit, the Breda, was the only new mobile suit they had managed to receive in time. With the model number PMX-005, it was an attempt to mass-produce a version of the mobile suit masterpiece, the O, and among 20-meter-class mobile suits, it was unmatched in strength. The Breda locked onto the Pegasus-class assault carrier, nicknamed the Mock Wooden Horse, within its firing range. The rugged Breda leapt forward, with Meyer's Dom Plus providing covering fire with its twin cannons. The Ill Naad, a Pegasus-class assault carrier, was now the command center for the Federation forces after the Odessa Air Force Base's control tower was destroyed. However, with the command structure in disarray and the defensive lines collapsing one after another, the Ill Naad was unable to effectively deploy its forces. The ship itself was on half-crew rest, leaving many of its pilots and staff absent. Out of its 9 mobile suits, only 6 had launched, and 4 of those had already been lost. Get the interceptors launched now. Send out everything we have, shouted Vice Admiral Manoff, standing up from his captain's chair, his voice filled with urgency. They were too late. Manoff was appalled at how the Odessa Air Force Base had allowed such a perfect surprise attack to happen. In the three-way conflict between the AEUG, Titans, and Axis, the Odessa base had been left out of the loop. Its morale, training, and even sense of urgency were lacking, something Manoff had known but had no choice but to accept. Manoff looked up at the operator stations above the combat bridge, where information was gathered and analyzed. He barked out a question about their primary mission, the reason they had to rely on the Odessa base for defense. What about Undersecretary Sarana Khan? Have we rescued her? We can't confirm the Undersecretary's status. The Odessa base's ground personnel and civilians are flooding onto the Ill Naad. The chaos is too great to identify individuals. That's not an excuse. Just do it. Understood. Wait. 3 enemy mobile suits approaching rapidly from 11 o'clock. Damn it. Lay down a... Manoff couldn't finish his sentence. A beam rifle shot from the Breda streaked across the battlefield, striking the combat bridge directly. The bridge! Kelly, who had just reached the Ill Naad, witnessed the scene. Debris from the shattered bridge rained down on his military jeep. Damn it! He swerved sharply, tires screeching as he dodged the falling debris. Beyond the rain of fragments, he saw an unfamiliar new enemy mobile suit approaching, preparing to fire a second shot. Instructor Kelly had ordered Adelie and the others to retreat to the 3rd runway. Along the way, they donned normal suits and made it to the hangar next to the runway, where the Tangram training units were stored. Adelie and the others dodged explosions and flying concrete fragments as they rushed into the hangar. Doug! Burner, you're here! Adelie and Raisa called out simultaneously. Inside the hangar were Adele's classmate, Doug Nielsen, and Raisa's senior from the military training course, Burner Simon, both in pilot suits like them. Doug, usually cheerful and prone to overacting, weakly raised his hand in response to Adele's call. His dark skin was smudged with soot in several places. Burner took a few steps forward to greet Raisa. They would have liked to celebrate each other's safety, but a new explosion made that impossible. The explosion signaled real danger, and Orvis voiced what they were all thinking. "What do we do, Raisa? Are we going to fly? This is seriously bad." "Of course! How can we just sit here while our allies are being slaughtered? We're military personnel. I'm going. Any objections?" Orvis shook his head. Burner also placed a hand on Raisa's shoulder, smiling in agreement. The tall, handsome senior, known for his excellent grades and good looks, looked natural with his arm around Raisa. Everyone at the academy knew Burner had his sights set on her, and Adela was no exception. When Raisa tapped Burner's hand twice in gratitude, something inside Adele twinged with pain. "Burner, Orvis, follow me!" Perhaps that's why Adele stopped Raisa as she led the military training students toward the Tangram training units. "I'm coming too, Raisa." "Adele, you..." Raisa's surprised eyes met Adele's. "If we stay on the ground, we're dead anyway. Even in training units, we can at least secure the Ill Naad's retreat." "Makes sense. I'm in too. The ground crew's already fleeing to the Ill Naad, so if we're doing this, let's launch now." Senri chimed in, following Adele's lead. Doug also shrugged dramatically, signaling his agreement. The decision was made. Raisa looked at everyone and nodded. "All right, Tangram Flight Training Team, all units scramble." As they parted, Raisa and Adela raised their fingers, promising each other they'd make it through safely. Good luck. For some reason, those words from Adela made Raisa incredibly happy. Chapter 5. When the combat bridge was destroyed, many refugees had already begun boarding the Ill Naad. Although the combat bridge was destroyed, the ship itself had not sunk. Kelly Schneider, who had reached the Ill Naad, instructed the ground personnel at the Odessa air base, where they had taken refuge, to man the gun turrets. He then shouted at the civilians to move to the residential blocks and stay there until further orders. After that, he headed toward the destroyed combat bridge. Instructor Schneider. "Claire, you're safe." As Kelly turned around, his student, Claire Brownie, approached with a worried expression. Soot stained her cheeks, marring her pretty face. She also looked exhausted. Kelly gently patted Claire's head. "You made it out safely. Well done. But the Ill Naad's combat bridge has been hit. We're short on operators and communications officers. Can you handle it?" "Huh? Oh, yes." "Good. Follow me." Kelly sprinted toward the staircase leading to the bridge block, and Claire followed closely behind. Assigned a task, Claire felt her anxiety gradually fade away. The scene Kelly and Claire witnessed upon reaching the Ill Naad's bridge was that of the outside. A meaningless blue sky filled their vision. The front half of the combat bridge had been melted by a beam, and the blast had blown everything away. The acrid smell of burning assaulted their noses, and the explosions around the Ill Naad struck them directly with shockwaves. This is worse than I thought." Overwhelmed by the sight, Claire tightly gripped Kelly's sleeve, trying to suppress her trembling. In the corner of the combat bridge, debris that hadn't been blown away by the blast lay piled up, emitting faint, artificial sounds. "Is someone there?" A voice came from beneath the rubble. Though hoarse, it was easy to imagine that it originally belonged to a deep, gruff voice. "Instructor! Hurry!" Kelly and Claire exchanged a brief glance before frantically clearing the rubble where the voice had come from. There was a survivor. As they moved a steel beam, a left leg came into view. A broken support pillar was impaled in it. Clearing more rubble, they saw several ribs protruding from the side of the torso. Blood dripped, and the right arm was crushed under the weight of the debris. When they finally removed the last steel plate, they saw the face. "General Manov!" There he was, his face contorted in pain, drenched in sweat. "Claire, call the medic. They're at the front of the residential area." As Kelly barked the order, Claire, on the verge of fainting at the sight of General Manov's protruding ribs, snapped back to attention and silently dashed down the staircase. "I remember seeing you at the reception. You're the instructor from the academy, right?" "Yes, sir. Kelly Schneider, at your service." "Your rank?" "Honorary captain, sir." "I see. Then there's no problem. Head to the main bridge and take command. If the main bridge is intact, the helmsman will be safe. We cannot let this ship sink." "General, go now. The medics will be here soon. Though it is pitiful, medics are always slower than the enemy. Now go." "Yes, sir." The Breda piloted by Sinclair had destroyed the combat bridge, but immediately afterward, it was surrounded by two mobile suits, the Gundam Mark II and the Jim II. Lieutenant Meyer and Sergeant Fire's Dom Plus units were also hindered by the Ill Naad's intensified anti-aircraft fire, unable to close the distance. Just as the Gundam Mark II attempted to restrain Sinclair's Breda, it counterattacked. Unlike the mobile suits from the Odessa airbase they had been fighting earlier, these two units coordinated well and were highly combat effective. However, Sinclair predicted that this would soon come to an end. Despite fighting 2 against 1, Lieutenant Gary and Lieutenant Leopard were feeling the pressure. "This is bad, Lieutenant. This new model is strong. I can't hit it." "Enough chatter. Flank it from the right. We'll draw it away from the Ill Naad while fighting." Yes, sir." "Ah!" A beam fired by the enemy's new model struck near the Jim II's feet, causing Leopard to lose balance. Ugh! Stumbling, he managed to roll into the shadow of a building that had served as their barracks. "Leopard! Are you okay?" Gary shouted to check on Leopard while drawing his beam saber and charging with the Gundam Mark II to buy time for Leopard to recover. The enemy's new model also drew its beam saber. The dull, heavy sound of mobile suits colliding echoed. The sound of beam sabers clashing followed, soon replaced by the noise of a blade lock. Beam particles scattered from the point of contact, creating small holes in the Gundam Mark II's armor. "Damn it! I'm being pushed back! What power?" In a ranged battle with beam rifles, the size of the mobile suits didn't matter. But in a beam saber duel, the Gundam Mark II was only shoulder height compared to the enemy's new model, clearly outmatched in strength. "You think a mere Mark II can beat a Breda?" The enemy's voice came through the comms, revealing that the new model's name. Just as Gary realized the situation was dire, a series of light impacts struck the Breda's backpack, and an aircraft flew past just 10 meters above the two units. A powerful sonic wave followed. Taking advantage of the sonic wave, Gary quickly disengaged. This was not an opponent he could defeat head-on. "I hit it." Adele confirmed that the 60mm Vulcan rounds had struck the enemy mobile suit's backpack, leaving small impact marks. Of course, 60mm Vulcans couldn't deliver a fatal blow to a mobile suit. But Adele felt that the hit was well placed. At the very least, it should have helped the Gundam Mark II. Pulling back on the controls of the Tangram training aircraft, he began circling the Ill Naad. The Tangram training aircraft, though lacking a transformation mechanism, was a high-performance trainer, whose design was based on the Zeta Gundam's Wave Rider mode. It was more than capable of functioning as a fighter. The silver wings withstood the immense stress as Adele's Tangram executed a sharp turn. During the turn, Adele saw that Raisa's and Burner's units had successfully pinned down the Dom Plus units attacking the Ill Naad. "Tangram training aircraft, support the mobile suits. Keep them surrounded. Don't engage recklessly. You'll just get taken out." Kelly's voice boomed from the captain's seat on the main bridge. As a former ace pilot of a core booster unit during the One-Year War, Kelly knew all too well what it meant to face mobile suits in an aircraft. Moreover, 10 years after the One-Year War, mobile suit tactics had advanced significantly. He was well aware that his students, piloting the Tangram training aircraft, lacked the skill to survive a dogfight. Engine output still not ready? 5 minutes to critical output. We just need to get airborne. Launch as soon as we have enough lift. But the enemy's target is the Ill Naad, but they didn't bring a mothership for this surprise attack. Understand? We're escaping across the Black Sea. Yes, sir. When Kelly arrived at the main bridge under General Manov's orders, the only surviving bridge crew member was Lieutenant Ed Kessel, the deputy helmsman. Fortunately, his presence meant the Ill Naad could still be operated at a minimum level. Claire, retrieve the mobile suits as soon as we're airborne. Have the gun turrets fire the megaparticle cannons horizontally at the same time. Keep the Tangram training aircraft supporting us until the Ill Naad reaches the open sea. Yes, sir. Claire, seated at the navigator's station, relayed Kelly's orders one after another. Engine output. Ready? Ill Naad, emergency launch. Port megaparticle cannons. Fire horizontally. Now! A white flash streaked across the sky. Hit it! As the Ill Naad's megaparticle cannons fired, sweeping across the runway, Sinclair shouted. However, likely due to the fighter's machine gun fire damaging the main nozzle, he couldn't control the Breda properly. Tsh! Sinclair managed to avoid a direct hit by accelerating erratically, but he was now in no position to pursue the Ill Naad as it took off. Lieutenant Meyer and Sergeant Fire's Dom Plus units also avoided the megaparticle cannons but were swarmed by fighters, losing their pursuit trajectory. As a result, Sinclair had no choice but to let the Ill Naad escape from the base. Again? The decision to attack with only mobile suits for the sake of stealth in the surprise operation had backfired, leaving them unable to pursue effectively. Sinclair slammed the control panel, trying to calm his rising emotions. The Earth Federation forces are quite entertaining. Sinclair fired a signal flare. Meyer, Geisen, retreat! We'll regroup with the Zanzibar and resume the pursuit. Chapter 6. Against the backdrop of the sinking sun, the silhouette of the Ill Naad floating on the Black Sea appeared incredibly small and fragile. Originally designed with a graceful, predominantly white aesthetic, the Ill Naad now bore no trace of its former elegance as it struggled to evade pursuers and continue its journey. The ship, still billowing black smoke, looked painfully battered. On the bridge of the Ill Naad, Instructor Kelly Schneider, the highest-ranking officer among those who had managed to escape, had taken command as acting captain under orders from Brigadier General Manov. We've managed to break away safely. Claire, please retrieve the damaged units, Kelly instructed. Understood. Opening landing gates on decks 1 and 2. Deck personnel, please hand over the units to the maintenance team after retrieval. Claire, seated at the operator's station, quickly relayed the orders. Despite the unfamiliar equipment, different from the Odessa Air Force Base's control tower, Claire had adapted well, which was a small relief for Kelly, who now had to command in this dire situation. Lieutenant Raisa, report the status of the Tangram units, Kelly requested. This is Raisa. We've taken some hits, but we're holding together. Raisa's voice was hesitant as she responded. Kelly, listening to the exchange, he understood why Raisa was struggling to speak. Pilots, during combat, focused solely on survival, but once the battle ended and they returned, the relief of having survived allowed them to take in their surroundings. It was then that they realized the extent of the damage to their mothership, leaving them speechless. More importantly, is the Ill Naad okay? I see black smoke coming from near the bridge, Raisa asked. The combat bridge was hit. Most of the regular crew are... Brigadier General Manoff is in critical condition, unconscious, Kelly replied. The fact that Brigadier General Manoff, their key leader, was in critical condition cast a shadow of uncertainty over the Ill Naad's future actions. However, Kelly reminded himself that it was a small mercy that Manoff was still alive. Thinking positively was part of his duty as an instructor and an adult. Otherwise, he might not live to see his students' Tangram training units land safely again. Claire, having finished her communication with Raisa, turned to Kelly. Claire, contact the Central European Theater Base. We need their instructions, Kelly ordered. Yes, sir. Also, after all units are retrieved, tell Lieutenant Gary and Ensign Leopard to come to the bridge. Instruct Raisa and the other students to assist with the wounded and refugees once their units are secured, Kelly added. After issuing orders, Kelly realized how thirsty he was. I can't ask Claire to make coffee, too, he thought, glancing at Claire, who was juggling both operator and communications duties. It was only fair that he make the coffee himself, and he decided to prepare some for Claire as well. The main monitor displayed the receding coastline of Yalta, a town at the tip of the Crimean Peninsula. Yalta was historically significant for being the site of secret agreements during the last World War, regarding post-war governance. Now, with its warm climate and scenic beauty, it was home to many resorts under the direct control of the Federation government, including the famous Swallow's Nest Palace, perched on a cliff overlooking the sea. To Kelly, who was now embroiled in war, these facts felt utterly nonsensical. The first bridge, clearly understaffed, still maintained minimal operational capability. The main monitor displayed the reorganized mobile suit team's lineup. Lieutenant, Adele and the others did pretty well, don't you think? Kelly said, handing a data disk containing combat records to Gary. As the highest-ranking surviving officer, Kelly had been appointed acting captain of the Ill Naad. However, he spoke with respect to Gary, a seasoned pilot and one of the surviving regular crew members who had fought in the 1-year war. Ensign Raisa aside, it's a miracle the others survived, Gary replied with a grimace. Gary, having fought on the front lines since the 1-year war, felt no guilt about sending students into battle. To him, survival was a given, and he had no qualms about the harsh realities of war. His blunt but accurate analysis of the combat records was something Kelly, as an instructor who cared deeply for his students, found indispensable. With this, the mobile suit team is reorganized. How's the situation inside the ship? What about the wounded and refugees? Gary asked. They've just settled down. The students are helping out, but we'd like to offload the wounded and refugees at a base as soon as possible, Kelly replied. What did Central Command say? Ensign Leopard asked in his usual slow manner. They've ordered us to head to Cyprus for now, Kelly answered. That's the front line, Leopard exclaimed, his eyes widening in surprise. The Zeon naval forces could land there at any moment. What are they thinking? Maybe we're just in the way. This ship and... Gary began, but Kelly cut him off. Enough, Lieutenant, Kelly said firmly. After a pause, he continued. For now, we need supplies, so we'll follow Central's orders. The situation was beyond the control of Kelly and the other officers. He switched the main monitor from the mobile suit team's lineup to a map of the surrounding area. Claire, call Raisa and the others. We'll hold a strategy meeting. The Ill Naad had already crossed the Black Sea, passed Istanbul, and was now approaching the Dardanelles Strait, connecting the Sea of Marmara to the Aegean Sea. For the Ill Naad, which had fled from Odessa to Yalta, the shortest route to Cyprus would have been to land at Sinop in Old Turkey and cross inland to reach the Mediterranean. However, the map on the main monitor showed that the inland area from Ankara to Izmir on the Aegean coast was under Zeon control, marked in red. The orders from the Central European Theater Base are to head to the Larnaca military port in Cyprus, and then proceed to the Algeria base in Africa, Kelly explained. Normally, they would have used the briefing room, but it was currently being used to house refugees, so the strategy meeting was held on the bridge. Kelly looked around at the assembled group. Most were his former students, but they were no longer students. Before the meeting, Central Command had issued orders integrating the students into the Ill Naad's 8th Fleet, assigning them wartime ranks. Berner Simon, 2nd Lieutenant. Raisa Crescent, 2nd Lieutenant. Adele Arisham, Warrant Officer. Senri Suzuki, Warrant Officer. Doug Nielsen, Warrant Officer. Orvis Boa, Sergeant. And Claire Brownie, now a corporal. They had been drafted into the military, whether they liked it or not. That was the reality. Kelly used a pen to input the Ill Naad's route on a small terminal. The main monitor displayed an arrow curving counterclockwise around the Aegean Sea. We'll bypass the Zeon defense line at Izmir, Ankara, stop at the Larnaca military port in Cyprus, and then head to the Algeria base in Africa. Specifically, we'll follow the western coast of the Aegean Sea south to Crete, cross the Mediterranean to Cyprus, and then proceed along the southern Mediterranean coast to Algeria, Kelly explained. It was a significant detour, but it was the safest route available. Any questions? Kelly asked. Adele raised his hand. If our final destination is the Algeria base in Africa, wouldn't it be faster and safer to cross the Mediterranean directly from Crete? It was a perfectly reasonable question. However, Raisa was surprised by it. She had been so focused on the route via Cyprus that she hadn't considered the possibility of going directly to Algeria. It made her realize how rigid her thinking had become. We've been ordered to stop at the Larnaca military port in Cyprus. It's likely also meant to serve as a diversion against the Zeon base at Tyre on the opposite shore. It's not ideal, but as soldiers we must follow orders, Kelly replied. The answer was as straightforward as the question. They had no choice but to go to Cyprus. Whether they liked it or not, it was the reality they faced. In the Ill Naad's hangar, Chief Quaker, one of the surviving regular crew members, was inspecting the returned Tangram training units. Despite his short, stocky build, receding hairline, and bushy mustache and eyebrows, Quaker was a top-notch mechanic. He grumbled as he worked, but his efficiency and precision were unmatched. Among the students, Senri, who had a knack for hardware, praised Quaker's skills, explaining to Adele and the others just how impressive his work was. Honestly, all of you are terrible pilots, Quaker muttered, finishing his inspection and turning to Adele and the others. He banged a wrench against the Tangram. These training units are done for. You'll have to use the Gym 2s on this ship. He pointed a thumb over his shoulder at the Gym 2s stationed behind the Tangrams. That's a relief. We'd run out of lives if we kept using the Tangrams, Berner said, welcoming the suggestion. Adele had no objections either, but he had a question. But what happened to the pilots of those units? They were on half-shift rest. Charlie's squad was wiped out in their quarters. Andrew was a good guy, a voice answered from across the hangar. Adele turned to see a pilot with the rank of lieutenant, accompanied by an ensign, walking over. The lieutenant, Gary, introduced himself and the ensign Leopard as they joined the group. Adele and the others saluted and introduced themselves in return. Gary surveyed the group and nodded. Aside from our units, there are 3 spare Gym 2s, as well as the 2 Gyms from Charlie's squad, and 1 Gundam Mark II. That's exactly enough for the 6 of you. Who's the best among you? Adele glanced at Raisa, who raised her hand slightly. her eyes filled with confidence. I see. Times have changed. Ensign Raisa, you'll take the spare Mark II. That okay with you, Quaker? Gary asked. We just fixed the broken ones. The mobile suit lineup is your job, Lieutenant. If you think it's best, I've got no complaints. Quaker replied with a trusting smile. But Lieutenant, your Mark II is in rough shape. It could use an overhaul, Quaker added. I'll be careful. All right, rookies. If you want to survive, get familiar with your units fast, Gary said, slapping Adele on the back. Gary's voice echoed in Adele's mind. Don't let the girls show you up. Get it together. Your Excellency. It seems Major Sinclair has failed to pursue the Deputy Foreign Minister. A middle-aged woman's voice echoed softly in a dimly lit room. I see. The man addressed as Your Excellency replied, sinking into a sofa. The sound of creaking leather filled the room. Contact Colonel Newman, the man ordered. What should I say? Tell him to do as he pleases, that's all? Yes, sir. The woman bowed and silently left the room, blending into the darkness. It wouldn't hurt to curry favor with the space noids now, the man mused, his voice echoing in the empty room. His balding scalp bore the marks of age, and his skin showed the wear of time, but his eyes, hidden behind sunglasses, were sharp and piercing. Heh, the man chuckled softly, amused by his own words. His name was Detour, the Western Front commander of the Earth Zeon forces.